You're listening to Chicago Stories, a podcast from City Hall featuring the stories of everyday Chicagoans, as told to Mayor Rahm Emanuel.
Mayor Rahm Emanuel with Kamau Murray from XS Tennis, gone from just a Chicagoan with a dream to a player that wins the U.S. Open. I think it happened in a flash.
Just definitely a flash.
Just like close your eyes, open them, and boom.
Put your seatbelt on.
How long, no, seriously, come out and tell people, how long did you think it would take you to have one of your players, not just in the U.S. Open, but to win?
Well,
And were you pinching yourself? I mean, to be honest, did you see yourself there that quickly?
You know what's funny is I actually did, right? So, so 2 years ago
Do you
when
want to practice that answer?
I know, right? So 2 years ago when I took the job, and her mother's my witness, I put together this fancy, and most tennis coaches don't spend 12 years in corporate America.
You should tell everybody who her is. So.
Sloan Stevens.
Right.
So I put together a nice PowerPoint presentation about all the things we need to improve upon, all the habits need to be broken and reshaped, and then what tournament that I thought we'd be ready by. And they said, oh, well, the French Open is her best surface. She's been to the fourth round of French Open 4 years in a row. The only American to do that. Not even Serena did that.
Okay, I think I read a lot. I did not know that.
Yeah, fourth round of French Open 4 years in a row. I said, that's all right, but that's not her best surface. I said, the best surface is American asphalt U.S. Open. I said, she's just not ready to win yet. I said, but in 2 years, she'll be ready to win. So I put together this plan, development plan, and she looked at it and was like, this is amateur night. A coach should just know what to do. He shouldn't have to write it down. I said, I know what to do. I'm writing it down so you know what I'm doing. And then when U.S. Open came, if you saw the look on my face, I was sort of shocked because it was a long time off. But I always said this would be your tournament, and I was kind of like, I told you so. So it really is, when you look at young kids now, you see so many people saying things like, I'm just going to try my best. I'm just going to give it my all and see what happens. And I think that's a total cop-out. You need people and kids to attach themselves to the result, because when you are solely focused on winning, there's more adrenaline flowing than if you're saying, I'm just hoping to play well, I'm just going to give it my best shot. When you really are solely focused on getting the win, you run 5 miles an hour faster. And I think if more kids just commit to the best result and be willing to be disappointment, we're trying to avoid disappointment by saying, I'm just going to play well. That's a cop-out. It's okay with not achieving a stretch goal. It's okay to be disappointed. So don't set a low goal to avoid disappointment.
Right.
So for Sloan, and she's the same way. She's got a social life. I got a family. I got stuff here, obviously. If we're going to go in an airplane and spend 2 weeks somewhere, let's try to win. Let's not hope to play well.
Has it changed her in any way, or is she still Sloan?
Oh, she's still Sloan.
Okay.
Sloan's the ultimate competitor. She's witty. She's a great person. I think that she shocked herself because I don't know that she really believes she could do it. As a coach, part of your job is to kind of put a little gas in the tank and fuel the player.
Yeah, juice them up for the game, right?
Juice them up, right? So I think she's sort of getting used to oh my God, I just did that. I'm the first American to do it other than the Williams sisters in 2004, right? And I did it with this young guy that I found on the bus stop on 54th and State, right?
Tall, skinny little guy.
Yeah, tall, skinny guy. I just changed his life. Right?
So who's coming at you now? You got Sloan. How's your world changed? We just talked about how's your world changed. It's got to be different.
It's very different. I feel like you now. I feel like every day there's a new request. You got to turn down meetings. You got to have somebody screen the meeting before you take the meeting. Turn down media requests just because you don't want to start smelling your own self, right? But for me, it's the same. I mean, when I got home from the U.S. Open, I had 2 bags of garbage by the front door, my wife's car keys. She says, take the garbage to the bottom of the hill. My car needs some gas, and get your kids.
Yeah, I'll tell you something. I used to come home from, when I was at Congress or whatever, and you come home after a week, away, and there was your to-do list, man, as if, you were solving world peace, voting on how many troops would go X, Y, and Z, or where we fund, and recycling your own newspapers at home. That's right. It was an amazing. Yeah, your feet never left the ground.
Never left the ground.
That's why spouses are perfect.
I know, right? They keep you grounded for sure. So it's gotten busier, but for me, I know that I'm appreciative of the opportunity. Not a lot of African American coaches get a chance to coach professional tennis players. I'm the only one coaching anybody in the top 100. Right?
Well, so I'm glad you brought that up. So what's it like, Kamau? To be honest, you have an African-American player, but as you said in 2004, the sisters won the U.S. Open. But you're the first coach in a dominant space by white people. Mm-hmm. How's it feel different? What do you think? Do you think the sport's going to change? You think people are going to look at the sport differently? You think it's going to get a bigger public audience that kind of the rarefied world of the U.S. Open?
Yeah, I think that I hope, I think that we've come a long way. Mm-hmm. Right, but if you look at all 3 African-American coaches that have coached Grand Slam champions, mm-hmm. myself, Richard Williams, and then Althea Gibson's coach, mm-hmm. they all coach African-American players. Mm-hmm. When we're really going to make progress is when a white player hires an African-American coach. And so when I'm out there, my job is to always carry myself very professionally, mm-hmm. Always do a good job, to open the door for somebody else, mm-hmm. right? Because it's a long drought, and Serena's coach was her father, mm-hmm. right? So before Althea's coach in 1980, there was a 30-year drought of African-American coaches who won a Grand Slam. And so, my hope is that more African-American coaches get the opportunity to coach players, maybe not a top 25 player or whatever it is, but just to get out there and see it. Because, one of my, I always joke with, my friends, some of our friends we have in common, and say, I invite you to Wimbledon so I can have somebody to hang out with at night, because nobody else that looks like me, right? and they're not Americans, you know what I mean? So
you think that's going to change?
I think it'll change. I think that if we get more people who are not burnt out on tennis, mm-hmm. to play college tennis, go into a professional career, rediscover their love for the game like I did, mm-hmm. and then bring all that professionalism that you learn in corporate America to the tennis court, mm-hmm. I think there's so many good ex-college players who are African-American that can take that corporate experience and that professionalism, bring it to the game, and get jobs.
Let me ask you 2 things. So you had a different route. As you just said, you played tennis, went corporate, coming back to tennis with the corporate culture. Yeah. You also came from Chicago, left Chicago, came back to Chicago. Tell me how both the corporate world and also Chicago shaped you, good and bad, mm-hmm. ready for this moment. Mm-hmm. Because this is, let's be honest, this is your moment. We're about to open up XS Tennis on the South Side. You got a U.S. Open winner in Sloan. So how did both of those experiences shape you, good, bad, and the ugly, all of it?
So I think first and foremost, Chicago, people who are raised in Chicago, and I went to school in Florida, people who are raised in Chicago have a certain level of toughness mm-hmm. that doesn't exist in some people who come from other cities. I'm not going to say Ohio, mm-hmm. right? It's just a very different type of culture.
I 100% agree.
The winters are cold. You stand on that CTA bus stop, wait on the Jeffrey No. 6 bus to come. You're going through different neighborhoods.
Yes.
Right? And I think and I went to magnet school with a very diverse culture. Whitney Young was, mm-hmm. Predominantly African-American, but there are also a lot of Asians and mm-hmm. whites from the north side because they want to come there. But I think that Chicago sort of gave me this level of stamina mm-hmm. and perseverance that it takes to sort of make it through tough situations. And I think the diversity.
Yeah, if you can survive 36 below 3 days in a row, you can probably, right.
And walk through the snow, and your mom says, I'm on the way to get you, an hour later, you're still standing on the bus stop waiting to come get you because your brother was at basketball practice in traffic. So I think that from a toughness standpoint, this city really breeds tough people. Mm-hmm. And I think from a corporate America standpoint, I think the toughness helps you, sort of work long hours, mm-hmm. like in corporate America. And I think from a corporate standpoint, I didn't know how to work mm-hmm. when I left college. I worked in New York for a couple years, and they teach you how to work. Mm-hmm. You're 7 to 7, and you think you're going home. You're mm-hmm. going out for drinks with your boss because he doesn't want to go home, mm-hmm. right? And so you learn to work 12 and 13 or 14-hour days in New York City. And so I think that also shaped my work ethic here. So when I'm coming back home and I'm an entrepreneur, I was at the tennis club this morning at 6 a.m., mm-hmm. construction meeting at 8 a.m. Mm-hmm. I'm here with you. Got to go back to another construction meeting and keep kicking the workers in the butt. Mm-hmm. And when I go home at 9 o'clock, I've got tons of emails that I still have to answer from the mm-hmm. time I spent in the car. So, I don't think that my story is possible without Chicago. And the other reason is we're in the center of the country, mm-hmm. right? Chicago's got more black millionaires than any other city in the country. Mm-hmm. And it's got a corporate culture that is so tied to the community that without XS Tennis, without that profile, mm-hmm. without all the PR and the articles and your support and Penny's support and Mark Walter's support, my profile doesn't get raised to the level where someone would say, you know what? He probably can handle the Wimbledon spotlight. He probably can handle this player at the US Open.
I'll do a testimonial for you. You can handle that.
Right.
There's no doubt about it.
You know, so it takes me from being a regular dude from 72nd and Jeffrey to somebody that has, okay, he's from the South Side, but he also knows how to behave in a corporate setting. He knows how to behave around wealthy tennis folks because he's ingrained in his culture. And I think if not for the story of Excess Tennis, the story of the Excess Tennis Village, you and I's story together, you don't get the same level of respect that a top 20 player in the world would say, can I take this guy on the road with me? Or her mother would say, can I trust this guy taking my kid to China? Right? And so I owe a lot of this to what we're doing collectively as a city in Chicago.
What is I think you got the Chicago toughness. There's no doubt. I don't care how many people get confused by your smile. It's a nice veneer. I know. I've seen it, man. Well, actually, to tell you the truth, you can't take Excess Tennis from the idea when we first literally sat at this table, I think 3.5 to 4 years ago, to what we are, about 3 months away from.
Well, we're moving in on Friday.
Okay. All right. Well, 3 hours from now. I can't. That takes a level of perseverance and determination that this is just not anywhere else. You excited about opening?
Very, very excited. I would more say relieved. You know, when you have a project and 4 years isn't really that long for a construction project in this city, right? With all the permits, et cetera. But when you have so many people that have supported you, you want to make sure you get to the finish line for them, right? And B, you know, you want them to feel proud. And when I won the U.S. Open, I always told Sloan, that victory doesn't just belong to you. It belongs to everybody. It belongs to my wife who let me go do this. It belongs to all the supporters who came to watch you play. You didn't know they were here, but they're sitting up there in the box up there. I said, so there's a lot of people.
Well, I told you about that story. I mean, I was waiting for the flight. I was going to Israel, and there was a football game, and there was a tennis game on 2 screens side by side, and everybody had gravitated to the tennis. Nobody was watching football. It was unbelievable.
Yeah, and people in the audience could say, I supported that guy 3 years ago. I knew he was going to do all right. You know, I stuck my neck out for him 3 years ago, and look, he just won the U.S. Open. So.
Do you think other coaches will follow your lead in the sense of not just having players, but a facility kind of building kind of a brand type concept? Or
I think so. I think
it's not going to be built just around players doing it, but it's going to be built around. I mean, you have a business vision for tennis.
Yeah, I think that when you think about a standalone tennis facility, there's no story there. It doesn't do anything. But when you think about how a facility can serve as a catalyst for change in a community, that's what I think that this example will do. I know San Antonio has reached out to me. Detroit has reached out. There's a place in Indiana I just got a call about. And I think that when you look at where indoor tennis clubs are across the country, they're solidly in wealthy neighborhoods. Lincoln Park, Barrington, whatever. My dream is for more people to put tennis facilities in bordering neighborhoods. It's not putting it in the deep south or the deep west side, because you want to create a blended experience for those who live in that community and those who come from outside the community that need a little bit of exposure to the other side. And so I do think that this will be a good example of you build it in Washington Park, a mile from Inglewood, 4 blocks from Bronzeville, a mile from South Shore.
Not that far from Hyde Park.
Not that far from
the
Hyde Park.
Presidential Library.
Accessible to 94, 55 for kids from Burr Ridge. And you look at this sea of people that all look different, right? And they're all gathered around the game and gathered around just one idea that, you know what? My life is going to be better because of this. And I think that you're going to see different cities use this as a model, because we're not the first ones to try this. We're the first one. We're like the second ones to actually get it done. Right. Houston's been doing it. Sylvester, he's
right. I know. He and I play a little game of competition. A lot of little. We're as competitive as you are, just in a different sport. In politics. Sylvester's the mayor of Houston. They actually have an interesting model.
They have a very interesting model, and I send them our model. I say, here's how much the city chipped in. Here's what they did. Here's how much federal money. Here's how much, grants, donations, debt. I said, here's how you do it. Now do it.
Yeah, and I also think the new train station that we're opening is going to make it, because of transportation, is going to make that so much more accessible. As you said, it won't just be a 10-block radius around the tennis facility. We're going to be pulling students and people from all parts of the city, and folks that know where Washington Park is but never been there.
Yeah, and I think what's funny is when I hear people think about where we're putting it, they say, oh, you just took the worst piece of land it could give you. I was like, well, for those who don't know how City Hall works, there's some pretty smart people in there with a lot of foresight. And there's 3 things we looked at. We looked at public transportation, and the mayor's office promised new transit, which they've delivered. The Green Line's looking better than ever. The Red Line's is up for revamping.
Right.
There's an educational institution that's 0.8 miles away in University of Chicago. And there's kids who need a way to pay for college who live a block or 2 away. I said, so this is, and State Street is 0 East, 0 West, which is the center of the city. And Garfield Boulevard is the busiest east-west street on the south side of Chicago. I said, so guys, we didn't just took the worst piece of land and gave us.
This is how you do development.
Yeah, it's how you do development. It's how you bring smart people like the mayor and Megan and everybody else and already to the table and say, where should this go? Where can its effect radiate? And that's why I give people a little lesson in geography. If you go to Chicago.
My thing is, what I love about this is you're going to take young athletes, and some won't ever play tennis. I mean, I always tell people the best training I've had for politics was ballet, because it required discipline. And you may never be a tennis player, you may never be a dancer, but everything you learn, the skills you learn there, are going to transfer to whatever else you decide in life. And you're actually going to approach a lot of the young men and women that are going to take classes, compete in 360 degrees, meaning nutrition, mentoring, academic support, and actually, I'm saying this because I just came from Phillips High School. We did a rally for the football team that won, second time in 3 years, statewide champion. And they're winning both as in sportsmanship, but they're also winning in scholarships. 3 years in a row, 100% graduation rate. They went from $300,000 to $11 million in scholarship in 3 years. And I see that's going to complement on Access Tennis.
Absolutely.
So what is some of the support that will happen there? And then how do we make sure we got the 10 people deep beyond Sloan to back you up, man?
Well,
because you're a great ambassador for the city. I mean that.
I carry the
I know
city
you
on my
wear
back.
Everywhere.
Everywhere. Wimbledon, everywhere. Like, you're the dude from Chicago with the white hoodie, right? So, we're going to offer mentorship. We're going to offer sports performance training. We're working with Athletico to have them set up
that's cool,
little satellite site there. It's funny. Last year I pitched it to them, and I don't think they really got it. And then Sloan got hurt.
Yeah.
I was like, guys, you could have been the ones rehabbing her, and then she wins the U.S. Open. I said, but you're like a year late to the party, but come join us anyway. They're coming. So, we got a lot of kids actually that want to come to the game, but, childhood obesity is like a major thing.
I know.
You've got kids in these CPS schools with BMI of 45 at 12 years old. They're never going to be able to chase down the ball. So we've got zero gravity treadmills. We've got weights. We've got a basketball court. We've got all these people who are probably 5'5", 5'6", who think they're going to be the next Derrick Rose because we're right across the street from Beasley. And we're going to lure them into the facility with a basketball court. And then when their dreams get crushed, they're going to say, come play tennis. Right. So we got that. We've got mentoring.
In another industry, we would sue you for false advertising.
So we've got mentoring there. We've got life skills. We got a curriculum called the Train Up First curriculum.
What is that?
Train Up First is a packaged mentoring curriculum where it's like 6 months long, and it teaches them about SMART goals, teaches them how to manage their brand. A lot of these kids' brands is alive on social media. A lot of college coaches are going to your social media page to see if I want you on my team. So we're taking kids through that. And I think that from a futuristic standpoint, if you look at the semifinals of the U.S. Open, 4 Americans, 3 African Americans. And so, I think that this is an indication that A, the sport is better when we're all present, and B, the players across the world, the best athletes play tennis. Soccer and tennis, the best athletes play tennis. In America, our best athletes play football, basketball, right? And so if we are going to raise U.S. tennis back to the level where it should be, we need some of our better athletes. And it's not black, white, or whatever. It's give me a 6'4" kid from Winnetka that wants to play tennis instead of basketball. All right, we need to encourage people to try to attend. And so when we're putting this thing on 54th and State, we're going to get all tall, long, lanky kids, right, who have great balance, great quickness, no skills, but we can teach them the skills. And hopefully that will translate into more U.S. champions.
Tell me, what do you think your parents, because I love the story about what your father told all the kids when it came to college. You should tell that. I mean,
yeah.
and the influence of your father and your mother on your lives and what you decided to do, because leaving the business world that is secure, not secure, but there was a path written for an uncharted territory for managing tennis players on the south side of Chicago. So what was it about what your parents instilled in you, and I mean, that got you to this point? Yeah.
So the reason I even started playing tennis was the summer 1987, my dad took my brother's AAU team, basketball team, to Africa. So those who all don't know, I'm the run of the family. My brother is 6'9" investment banker. He's the tallest investment banker in the city of Chicago. So my
dad
may
make him the tallest investment banker in the United States at 6'9". It's a small list at that height.
Exactly, right? And he's got John Ryder is the best boss the basketball player could ever want, right? So my dad took 20 young men to Africa, to Senegal, on a basketball exchange where they played the Senegalese national team. And so we came back July 27th, 1987, and all the summer camps were closed except for a tennis camp at Jesse Owens Park on 87th and Jeffrey. Obviously, every tennis camp in the city was probably wide open in the south and west side, right? Oh, you got one more kid? We have room, right? So that's why I even started. And so philanthropy was in my family's DNA. My dad was an attorney, took these guys to Africa. My mother was a CPS assistant principal. And if anybody ever knows the show Know Your Heritage, used to be a citywide competition that private and public schools competed on WGN. And Hyde Park High School won the Know Your Heritage TV contest.
When Mom was the principal?
When my mom was the assistant principal and the coach of the team, 10 years in a row, right? And so she used to tutor these kids.
10 years in a row?
10 years in a row. Above Whitney Young, above Ignatius, above all these, before Peyton was around. Hyde Park, right? Which at the time didn't have the reputation of Whitney Young, et cetera. There was no IB program there. This was just like kids from the neighborhood who were in my basement. They'd be in my basement studying for this television show while we're sitting up there trying to figure out dinner. My mom is down there and my dad's working. So I saw my mom tutoring kids and not feeding me dinner at night. I saw my dad take...
Now I know why you're thin.
Now you know why I'm thin, right? And then when she did, come up and cook dinner, she cooked a salad because that was quick.
All right.
So, and my dad, took my brother's basketball team across the globe to compete. And so this sort of give back, mentor, et cetera, athletics was in my sort of DNA. And ironically, I always say my dad was the guy that pushed me to compete in sports because he didn't want to pay the college bill. My mom was the one that took it away. If you came home with a C, you're not playing tennis, right? And my dad said, that's how he's gonna pay for college. Don't take away tennis, take away TV, take away the phone, make them break some leagues, but we don't take away the sports because that's their ticket. And so, he's very clear that everybody in this house, it's 4 of you guys. Your mom's a CPS teacher. She's never gonna make any money. I'm a private practice attorney with an office on 93rd and Cottage Grove. I'm not gonna make any money. So you better find the ball and kick it, spike it, shoot it, or hit it. And so my sister played volleyball at Illinois State. My younger sister was a state high jump champion. My brother played basketball, and I played tennis. So very different paths. But, he was lucky. All of us got college scholarships, so he didn't have to pay for college. And I think that the reason why they loaned me the money to start Excess Tennis is, aside from the college, when you're growing up on the South Side and you have 2 working parents, the hours between 3 and 7 o'clock are really dangerous times. And so sports, during that time gave us a safe haven. My parents didn't know anything about tennis. My mom has never seen me hit a tennis ball to this day. She just knew that between 3 and 7.
It's so funny.
I know.
When I danced, I had 2 professional shows. My parents never saw them.
Never saw them.
No, and when I was in Congress or whatever, I flew in to see my daughter say one word on the play. I had 2 professional performers. My parents, where was it, when? Great. You come home from the performance, not a question about how it was, but that actually probably was the smartest thing it was important. Right. Exactly.
Let you own it. It's your dream. It's your show.
Right.
Whatever. Just be home and get your homework done.
Right.
So yeah, it was really convenient babysitting, and it kept me out of trouble because I was a kid that was in the middle. I could have gone either way. I mean, I got off the bus, and on my way home, there were guys in the neighborhood who were like, yeah, you know, why don't you come back?
Well, let me ask you. So what was your kind of fork in the road? As Yogi Berra used to say, when you get to a fork in the road, take it. Could you have gotten in trouble? What do you think made you go that path?
Yep.
Sports, college?
I think the lack of available time. So let's say
You were occupied.
I was occupied. I had no time to get into trouble because I was literally on the court till 7 o'clock. So if I was got off the court at 5 o'clock, I probably had 2 hours to play with where I could have found mischief. But because I committed so much of my free time to this sport, I didn't have enough time to really get totally sucked in, right? And so I was around people who were progressive, and they swung me to the right instead of allowing me to swing to the left. But, you know, I always say, like, you know, sometimes with these programs, we focus on the kids that are really at the very bottom. But there are so many kids in the middle who are just as much at risk. And I always find that the middle multiplies. If you have a kid with a little bit of a head start and you like push them over the edge, then they create excess tennis where now you're helping 2,400 kids.
See, this is so I have a theory. No, it's not my theory, but I always say around here, 20% of the folks will always work no matter what's going on around them. 20%, no matter what's going around them, will never work and will be complaining and talk. And top job of management is to make sure that 60% in the middle is moving closer to the first 20 rather than the second 20.
Absolutely.
And if you get them there closer and closer every time, there's nothing that's going to stop you.
Yeah. You know, it really is an idle time. And I think that if we don't produce any more professional tennis players, if our college stats starts to decline as our bandwidth increases, if we can just provide a safe place for those families who have 2 working parents, right, and don't have the nanny and the stay-at-home mom and that kind of stuff, that is also a win for us, right? Just being a safe haven, having this big roof. We got a big roof, right? We got 116,000 square feet.
I'm aware of how big that roof is. I got the south end of that roof. I paid for that. That's my roof. I'm putting my name on that beam, the final beam that goes in. No, it's true.
So it's a win. And then, you know, if the middle, hopefully they appreciate the opportunity enough to come back and help somebody behind them.
Okay, I'm going to do one. I want to close on this. When you decided to give up the corporate track, come back, was there a point in time early on or maybe even later where you said, well, this was a mistake?
Yeah.
There was?
Well,
go ahead.
I think that.
What was it?
You know, I worked in, you know, pharmaceutical sales, which was great because, you know, it gave me some free time after 5 and 6 o'clock to go ahead and do what I want to do on the tennis court. But it also gave me a lot of security. I had free car, free gas. If I had a flat tire, I left it on the side of the road and the company came and fixed it. I had an expense account. I probably ate 3 or 4 free meals a night with doctors. And, you know, when I got married and my wife said, you know, we need new curtains and we need, you know, we need all this. It's like, oh, let's hold on.
Right.
So then, January 27, 2015, I leave my job. And I was number 1 in the region at the point. And I called my boss to resign. He's like, I was just sending out a congratulatory email that you were number 1 in the region, and now you're calling me to resign. And it's a scary thing because now you have, you know, I wasn't a single guy anymore. So now you have a wife who was also a teacher who's never going to make any money, right? You got kids now. You got mouths to feed. And now you're dependent on selling tennis lessons to middle class to low income kids on the South Side, right? So the smart person would say, you know what, I'm going to quit my job and build a tennis facility in Barrington where tons of people who can play. The fool says, I'm going to build the second facility in an urban environment in the country and expect it to survive, right? And so it was, you know, when we, like you always thought, I was at a fundraiser for a judge in the Highlands. I said, oh, Ram, you know, we have this problem and that problem. He says, there's always hurdles. You just keep jumping, right? Every time there's a hurdle, I'm like, I could have just stayed in corporate America and like lived a good life. But, you know, yourself and like Billie Jean King, she always says, don't call me with this BS, Kamau. Champions adjust. You just keep making a left and make it right and jump over the hurdle and just keep on going. But I mean, even to this day, with our issues with some of the utilities and this kind of thing, it's always like, this is the gift that keeps on giving. Yeah. Right? And no good deed goes unpunished, right? And so there's always times where you look back and say, I gave up a very comfortable lifestyle to be like, you know, to take a vow to poverty almost, right? But then you have those days where last week I had a kid commit to Ohio State. right? Or Sloan wins the U.S. Open. And then you look like a genius. Like,
You're peak.
Yeah, I took a risk, and it turned into this.
See, my thing is you never want to, I tell my kids, you never want to look back on life on a moment and say, I woulda, coulda, shoulda.
Yeah.
You may fail,
Yeah.
but the failure will be less of a bottom than going on doing something and looking back regretful, resentful, or woeful that you didn't take the try.
Right.
So whatever you do in life, you got to fast forward yourself and say, will I look back and go, I woulda, coulda, shoulda? Because that's a horrible feeling, man.
I also asked myself, what am I protecting? I made $100,000, which in the fundraising world, I've learned is not a lot of money, right? So
we keep that a secret until you're in the club.
So I'm sitting here. I'm from 72nd in Paxton, right? I live in a small condo in Bronzeville, 48th in Michigan. I got a company car. I got no debt. I've got nothing. I've got like no global like presence, right? No even city presence. What am I protecting? I'm like kind of at the bottom already. So I might as well take this shot and try to achieve something great. Now, if I had been, probably $2-3 million a year, salary working in investment banking, I might have thought twice about giving that up to come do community work.
Your wife would have made you think twice.
Oh yeah, you're on your own on this one, right? But I think from where I was, I wasn't, in my mind, I wasn't anywhere great. I was just paycheck to paycheck, modest living.
We are so lucky as a city that you took that leap of faith. That's because it is a leap of faith.
Well, to hear you say that is great. So hopefully my wife feels the same. I still owe my wife some curtains and a honeymoon.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, get her one of the two, will you?
Yeah.
All right, we're with Kamau Murray. And here we go on the fast round. Ready?
Yep.
Okay. Cub socks. Which one?
Socks.
Okay. Thick or thin? Pizza. 16-inch softball, 12-inch.
12.
Okay. Lake or river?
Lake.
Sears or Hancock?
Hancock.
Kamau Murray, Access Tennis. This may be the first you heard him, but it's not the last. Thanks for being here, man.
Thanks for having me.
I can't wait for that opening.
Me too. Thank you.
You're listening to Chicago Stories with Mayor Rahm Emanuel. You can subscribe and leave a review on Apple Podcasts and tweet your guest ideas using #ShyStories. Thanks for listening.